Greetings, I'm Kath Crowley-Kahn from We Think Big and LRNG Badgerland, and I'm joined here by Tina Salzman, former director of the Hendricks Career Tech and now clinical professor of education leadership and policy analysis from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We're joined in spirit by Kayla Schumacher, who was a nurse educator from Beloit Health Systems and cannot be with us today. And we're here to tell you what happens when an educator, a nurse, and a community leader walk into a bar. Just kidding. But we are here to talk about what happens when three different types of stakeholder organizations come together to co-design learner experiences and digital micro-credentials. Now we'll be hosting a 1-hour live interactive conversation in the Credentials Cafe later on at the summit, and check your schedule for information on when that will happen. But today we're here to provide a little bit of backdrop and context for that conversation. Providing a bit of context, LRNG Badgerland was an initiative we brought to the state several years ago, and it began as a pilot study with some target organizations providing learner opportunities for high school youth. As we explored and probed how it was working with these organizations, it became super evident that the important aspect and the key to success was the quality and the dynamics between the education and employer team. And I was very fortunate to meet the folks down in Beloit, two excellent education stakeholders, Hendricks Career Tech and Beloit Health Systems, who have been working together but were ready to take their partnership to a new level through micro-credentials. And spoiler alert, after working together, we were able to create two different strands of micro-credentials for healthcare careers, totaling 4 playlists, featuring over 27 activities.
Hi everyone, I'm Tina Salzman, and it's a pleasure to be with you all and be able to share with you a little bit of our journey into micro-credentials and the many things that we learned along the way, as well as the numerous benefits to our community and to our students. So a little bit about Hendricks Career Tech. As the director, I would classify Hendricks Career Tech as sort of a career laboratory of sorts, and we are, they still are, an official arm of the State Line Boys and Girls Club. Our work really began with looking at the need in our state and particularly our greater Beloit community, and that really started with the need to fill the nursing pipeline in the state of Wisconsin. Prior to that, I think it's important to note some of the obstacles that were in place. Particularly, it was very challenging to create different learning opportunities or even to think about them because there was no centralized contact person or person devoted to doing that work. Really varying levels of thinking about what was possible, and by having that centralized person, we were really able to build a relationship and put our heads together to come up with some really outstanding opportunities for kids to have hands-on learning. The other thing I think that it allowed us to do is to create a scope and sequence of experiences. Prior to that, we really started off with these one-day academies that kids could happen upon, but there was really no follow-up or what came next. And in particular, that was true both with Beloit Health Systems and Career Tech, but then also with our partnering school districts. However, we were very fortunate that the CEO of Beloit Health System recognized the importance of this and really gave his stamp of approval. And not only that, but later on committed to hiring many of the youth that were coming out of the pipeline through our capstone opportunity of having kids complete their CNA license. I would say a couple of things about thinking, or when we started to think through micro-credentials. When I first started exploring and thinking about developing the programming opportunities through Hendricks Career Tech, I think one of the things that I recognized early on was that we needed a tool to be able to organize experiences. It wasn't enough that students had the opportunity in our state to use Zello, because it didn't necessarily afford all of the boxes to collect and sort their experiences that the micro-credentials do. The other thing is, as we were developing our programming, it was very early on evident that we needed to align to state and industry standards. As you can well imagine, healthcare has a lot of standards, and one of the things that we were able to do through the micro-credentials was to bridge or to create this bridge between what kids were learning and what was needed in the workplace. Specifically, that was a reassurance that Beloit Health Systems HR department became more comfortable with over time. Additionally, I think it was also a way for us to strengthen those community partnerships, because it wasn't any one organization coming to the table with all of the knowledge. Rather, it was really important to have the multitude of voices and stakeholders at the table, and everyone contributing to its development and construction. And without any one of those partners, I don't know that it would have been as successful as it was. And then, you know, because we are working with schools and our surrounding school districts, it was important also that we were able to make linkages into programs like Inspire and what is now Zello. And I think that was something that between aligning to the standards and then also that marriage with Zello allowed that to be a much more palatable opportunity for learning. And then lastly, and probably one of the most important, is it's a way to capture that experiential learning. You know, without a doubt, every one of our experiences, kids had their phones available when it was appropriate, and they were snapping pictures of the awesome things that they were doing, because we really prided ourselves on taking that authentic learning that they were doing through some of the front loading with the micro-credentials and now transferring it into those hands-on learning opportunities. As we thought about the design process and that collaborative opportunity, we started to think about, okay, so what are the skills and competencies? And again, I think one of the most important things was having those different community voices at the table. We had the healthcare, we had CAF guiding us, and we had the educator lens. And so that was really critical for helping us think about skills and competencies from a multitude of angles. And it then helped us to think about the competencies and what did kids need to be able to know and do from a skills perspective and a knowledge perspective. And then also thinking about it from an educator lens, in that, you know, how is this aligning to a lot of the college and career readiness standards that are out there? And in particular, we had a sneak peek at the nursing standards for the state of Wisconsin. And so we were able to really draw on those and to lean on them to help us think deeply about how we could co-construct the learning opportunities for students, both on a front-loading end in terms of front-loading their learning, but then also on the back end as we thought about designing those hands-on experiences and what we were asking students to do post hands-on experience. And then for me as an educator, and I think this is across the board, but I'll speak for me, the level of rigor was really important to me. I did not want this to be an opportunity for kids to simply log in, check some boxes, breeze through, and be done. It was really important that students interacted with material in a very thoughtful, purposeful way that really allowed them to advance their thinking and understanding of health careers, particularly because many of our hands-on experiences were located and are located at Beloit Memorial Hospital. And so we were sending them into that authentic environment, and we wanted to do so knowing full well that they were adequately or more than adequately prepared for that experience. And then lastly, those opportunities eventually became a form of currency in thinking about, you know, the different credentials and what they earned students. In order to complete a job shadow, you know, you needed to do any number of things through the micro badges. And that was important because we were preparing them and causing them to think through and to acknowledge and actually interact with many of the skills that were necessary in order to prepare them. And so that became a form of currency through the eyes of students, but then also for Beloit Health Systems, in that currency afforded assurances that they were prepared to enter that authentic healthcare environment.
Sometimes having so many wonderful resources can end up being a little bit chaotic because you're not quite sure whether the student's going to take them in the right order, or some students will get one experience, others will get a different one. So how do you maintain that you pick the best experiences, the best curricula, and put it in a way that makes sense? So the next step for the partnership was to take a look at what is out there, what's the best, what dovetails nicely with what we have here in our community to support some of these online experiences. So we talked about how do we tap the resources we need, how do we take what we have and realign it into what we call a playlist, but basically it's the structure and scope for what the students experience and in terms of earning their badges. And this is one of the examples. This is Exploring Healthcare Careers. The first playlist has a playlist level 1 and level 2 because we want to keep kids motivated and really show that they can, once they master the basic knowledge, they can attain the next level. So the first part of that experience was basically just exploring careers and finding the right fit for them. And we tapped everything from exploring the local employer here, which was Beloit Health Systems, to looking at different career explorations, creating a career pathway, a personal pathway and career map, but then also starting to prepare them for those more heavier duty knowledge pieces that Tina mentioned about safety in the healthcare workplace and confidentiality.
So our second playlist related to work ready and healthcare took students a little bit deeper into their learning. And again, as Kath previously mentioned, kind of that next level of understanding around safety in the workplace.
That's our quick look at the partnership down in Beloit, Wisconsin. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Here's our contact information. And again, we will be leading a session in the Credentials Cafe.